Hey everyone, Greg here. As you may know by now, I'm the co-founder and CEO of TripShock, an online reseller for water sports and tours. For the past 12 years, we've had the pleasure of working with hundreds of operators across the country, and we're looking to grow our community. It's free to sign up, and you only pay when we bring you confirmed bookings. We'll help you reach new customers, fill empty seats, and grow your business like so many have done with us over the years. Head over to partners.tripshock.com to learn more about our program, read testimonials, or speak directly with our supply team. As always, thank you for listening and enjoy the show. Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Awkward Watersports Guys podcast. I'm here with my good buddy, Kevin O'Neill, and today we are going to talk about mistakes you make in your first year of business.
That was like a really weird inflection in your voice in the beginning. Like it was like a super like, hey, hip cats, this is Greg Fisher. Welcome to the fucking Awkward Water. You had like a weird like hip cadence going on there. It was that like, I'll tell you what, that's the first mistake you made in 30 seconds into this podcast. I'm sorry, man. You know, somebody said to me, like, so I've adopted this laughing at my own jokes. Like, so I've never really laughed at my own jokes until we started this show. I don't know why I started doing it, but now I do it in real life too. Now, everywhere I go, I laugh at my own jokes. And somebody told me that I howl and cackle at my own jokes like I'm doing right now. I don't know. It's like a weird thing. Like if you tell a joke or you think you're being funny and nobody laughs. So I just laugh at my own shit, and I don't care if you guys fucking laugh, so I'll howl and cackle all I want. Anyway, we're going to talk about first year mistake.
Yeah, and I was kind of inspired about this topic because we had our two-part series recently, and we talked about some challenges, stuff we had to overcome, and I think it'd be good to kind of like deep dive a little bit more about some of those. And since we have, I'm coming from the marketing side, and then you're coming from the operations side, there's probably a couple really good topics that we can hone in on that. And honestly, like just from the administrative side, like finding the right partners, right? And mistakes you can make early on with that. On that note, I think that's a good way to segue into the topic is, partnerships. So when you start a business, you have an opportunity to partner with people, or you can, do it solo and hire. I started with partners. I was actually brought in to TripShock before it was TripShock. And eventually the three people that I guess the main partner I had, we decided to, it was best that we work separately, and we parted ways, but we're still remain good friends and partners on TripShock. And also there was another minority partner that we ended up buying out that it didn't really work out. And just recently, we're in the process of another partner that might be leaving. So there's just this priorities change over 13 years. You got to think like we're not a young company anymore. When people get in, there is this excitement and they want to contribute and do great things. But after a while, not many people can make it. They expect things to get to places fast, and if it doesn't happen, they lose interest, and that's kind of what happens. Or the company changes, and their skill sets are not as valuable, and there's no way to pivot that. And if you have someone holding a bunch of equity that can't contribute to the company in the ways that you need them to, then it's very expensive equity that you have that could be essentially, either bought and resold to another partner or used to get financing. So I'm just kind of curious. I'll go more into but I wanted to get Kevin in on this and get your thoughts.
I mean, partners are a blessing and they're a motherfucking curse, man. I think that if you have the right partners, you can crush it. There's some statistic that said, again, me and Greg, we just like came up with this. Well, Greg hit me with this topic like 40 minutes ago and I was on my way back to my office. But I read a statistic somewhere that said 60% of businesses, or something like 60%, or it's like a 60% higher chance of a business surviving with business with partners. And I can tell you, like my partners from my experience, my partners have been great. A lot of businesses start with friends and family as partners. Initially, I thought that somebody that had experience in our industry would be a great partner. And I'm not going to take anything away from either one of my partners, but Ilya, my partner, who recently he left his engineering position at Bosch and came and then my partner Alphonse, he's like polar opposite of us. So Alphonse is an operations guy, and Ilya he's an engineer who's never done anything with water sports, but he optimizes all of our fair harbors. He loves to get on the weeds on everything and anything. He's a very deep thinking person. He analyzes a lot of stuff, and sometimes there's just we need that. I'm like let's just jump into it and figure it out as we do it. He likes to have some set plans because in its core, he's an engineer. So this is a really long way of sort of explaining he's the opposite of what I bring to the table. So in that regard, it's great when something needs to be meticulously executed and it's going to save us money. And it's in the long run where I just want to jump head right into it. And then those can be doing things that way can become very costly in the long run. However, you can also suffer from analysis paralysis if you plan too long. So when we kind of have conversations, we always kind of have this happy middle that we come to, which usually is it's always been the right play for us. So
what's funny? My business partner, Alex, he's the same exact way. And they're both Russian. You're Russian. I'm Russian. Yeah. Maybe something about the Russian work ethic. But
hey, wait, no, I gotta say, I saw a picture because we're not on Facebook, and I said I took a screenshot and I forgot to send it to you. I was like, does everybody have an Ilya in their life? Because I looked at a picture of Alex, and he looks like Ilya, down to the shaded glasses, the shaved head,
They do look the same.
Alike.
I know. I think they would really get along too. But going back to mistakes, is finding the right business partner is so crucial, because I've gone through a handful of them through the years. And it wasn't Alex, my current business, he didn't come on day one. He came really more involved year 4. He was actually his company actually developed the first version of Trip Shock. So he was somewhat involved, but he wasn't actually a partner until 4 or 5 years in. But when you are going into this, I think it's really important to have history with these people, or were you colleagues with them, you understand their work ethic, where they're going to see themselves 5-10 years. Literally, don't just rush into a partnership. It should be something that is taken very seriously, and you do a lot of due diligence, because that person could destroy your business. And not to say that the partners that we had to buy out or part ways with did that, but they definitely there was a lot of stress, and I think it slowed things down considerably. It all worked out in the end, but you're looking at time, having to work the person out or whatever. And when you decide to do it, depending on how big the operations and what they bring to the table, don't bring someone into your company that you can do, that has that same skill set. Look for people that complement you. And I think that makes the strongest partnership. Hey everyone, we're going to take a quick break and talk about our sponsors for the month, AMP Agency. AMP is a full-service digital marketing agency that specializes in tour, rental, and destination marketing.
We would not have sponsors on the show if we could not vouch for them ourselves. AMP Agency does a bunch of stuff for Destiny Water Adventures personally. I 100% vouch for this guy. I've handed them over to other companies in the past before they officially became a sponsor, and they have had nothing but great things to say. If you guys are doing your own marketing and doing a piss poor job of it, do yourselves a favor. hand yourselves over to AMP Agency, specifically Steve Edwards, their CEO, will call you personally and have a great conversation with you about what you guys need to do for your marketing.
Listen, guys, they do pretty much everything in digital marketing: website development, maintenance, Google AdWords, PPC, graphic design, social media management, SEO, and a myriad of other things. When you choose a marketing company, it's so important to choose a company that knows your industry. And AMP Agency knows activity marketing, especially water sports and tours. They got a promo going for Awkward Watersport Guy listeners for their managed websites. Use promo code Awkward Podcast when you go to amp.agency. So again, that's amp.agency, promo code Awkward Podcast. You get 3 months free and get started with AMP Agency. All right, guys, let's get back to the show.
Yeah. So, when we started talking about this, just through text about like what this episode was what we want to talk about this episode, it was mistakes. Like, what mistakes did you make in the first year? And so to take the other side of that, I've got a friend in Detroit who had a business and he bought his partner out, but he did not know that his partner had a felony. And when they needed funding, and they needed loans, the bank would not give them money because his partner had a felony on his record. And he didn't know that. Neither one of them knew that would stop them from getting loans. So that was a huge barrier for their growth. And it was just a very, talk about the mistake, the mother of all mistakes. If you need money to grow your business or to even keep your business alive, because for whatever reason, and you're not accessed because you picked the wrong partner, and that's one thing. But to your point, yeah, absolutely, I do believe you have to have that puzzle piece that fits in. If you have a guy that's just like you, man, it's like it's going to create especially depending on the. To me, it's the 50-50 thing is very hard. It can be very hard because it's like almost like you need somebody steering the ship. So for the most part, I do have a new business with me and Ben are a lot different. But we are 50-50 partners on this business. Well, I take that back, but we're equal. Ilya's involved in that too, but we're equal. We're equal shareholders. With Destiny, I very much it wasn't about the money for me. I wanted the 51% or above because I had to be the final decision maker. So
yeah, I agree. You have to have that. And our minority shareholders might be more powerful than us because Alex and I are 50-50, but then we have a couple, two others that have, a few percentage points. So they can be the deciding vote in anything. Yeah. So you put yourself in that position, unfortunately, but.
Well, I structured it so that no matter what, like nobody could get together and, have say or anything, like any kind of say over. And it wasn't even the money. I was more than willing to go 50-50 on profits. But as far as decision-making powers, like I knew early on that at the end of the day, now listen, that's not to say that they don't talk me out of shit all the time because I'll be like headstrong into something that I want to do. And I'll believe that it's the right, and if they can ideologically beat me in a debate, I guess, or change my mind, and I'm like extremely strong-willed person, but I'm also malleable to change. So, that's not to say that I can't be flexible, which is another lesson that you've kind of learned in your first year is that you cannot be inflexible on things because there's going to be outside conditions that force you to flex, force you to bend, or they will break you. So it's like year one is like you have to understand that like going into these things, you're going to have plans, you're going to have ideas, and none of that shit is going to happen according to your plan because the world in life has got a whole other subset of parameters that it's going to force your business to bend to. So,
and before I forget this thought, you brought up a good point about if your partner has a felony record in financing. If your partner has poor credit, that could also, because I had that happen and we could not get financing because of an outstanding debt, and that killed it. But anyways, I think we can kind of sum it up that make sure you know who your partner is, make sure that they have a skill set that complements you, so you're not butting heads. And
anything above 20%, you have to list them when you're doing anything. But if they're below 20%, you don't. If you do 19.5, 19.9, there's other ways to structure partnerships too.
Yeah.
Like you can create contracts, like very long contracts where you're paying somebody a percentage of gross or net, and pay them as a consultant. And so they can still get their money and not, have any decision-making power within your organization as well.
And what I'll do, I'm writing down, Kevin, we should probably have an episode and bring on a guest that can help us with partnership arrangements and things like that. I think it'd be a good whole episode geared towards that.
Yeah. Because this show turned into like partners, man. Like I've been grabbing you and pulling you back into the mistakes, and it turned into the partner episode.
Let's go to
it's a big one, because it's like, yeah, man, like you can you and your brother or you and your uncle we're going to start this great business and have this whole thing, and the road to hell is paved with the best intentions, man. And like, that's a huge thing. Like the whole business can fall apart or thrive based on partners. And there's numbers to support that. So I think those first mistakes.
Yeah. Those incestuous partnerships are a fucking nightmare, because now you got like family involved. God, like that's all right. If you're family forming a water sport business with your brother or cousin, you have to just really feel good about it, because those are sometimes the worst, or husband-wife stuff, which is very common. Like, what happens when you have a divorce and all that. There's partners that we have right now that are going through divorces, and it's a tough deal. But anyways, let's move on. So, Kevin, you were talking about flexibility, in your business and being flexible. This is probably the biggest point, more than the partnership thing, because you might think that everything you're doing is the right way, and then you have to pivot a few times. Like, man, look at your first year. You had your whole plan of day of play and all that. City government shuts you down, and now you had to regroup.
So I'll tell you one thing I learned this year. As far as like, and I'll bring it back to like my network again, about being like-minded people and very intelligent people, very flexible people. It took me 4 years to figure out that sometimes I don't have to have so I can be very neurotic with having like safety nets. Like I want to have like a safety net for the safety net for the safety net for the safety net. I'll have 4 different ways I want to execute a plan before I execute that plan. Sometimes that has really helped me, but there's other times that's kept me on the fence and kept me from opportunities, because I couldn't figure out fail safes around decisions that I wanted to make. Sometimes, and I've seen some people really get in trouble doing this, but I've also seen some people be really successful doing it. And that's going in and figuring it out as things come. And there's just a lot of times where I had all these safety nets around me and all these fail safes and all these firewalls, and all of something just completely out of left field that I just did not even think about happen. And I was just like, I had to figure it out on the fly. And then I figured it out, and it was fine, because I was undeterred in our mission. So you have to be able to be nimble. You have to, and I don't mean that just in a sense of like from a corporate or business, like, oh, your business has to be nimble. Like you yourself have to literally be nimble mentally with things that are going to come flying at you, because you're not going to have a plan for it, and you're going to have to figure it out. And this is what we do every day, because we're on the water. Like, how many times have you figured out how, like, oh shit, something breaks, and you have to, at that moment, either figure out how to fix it, rearrange the customer schedule. The equipment might be out on the water. You have no idea. Like there's no rule book for a lot of this stuff. There's nobody you can call and ask, hey, what do I do right now? You grab a jet ski and tow it in. And then guess what you just did? You like put all of this pressure on your jet ski, you blow out it's like, no, you should have kept the boat behind to either come switch boats out with those people, whatever. Like these are things that I just figured out, like making stuff up on the fly because that was what we had to do. So,
what's funny? I've just seen so many tour operators go out of business, unfortunately, through the past 13 years. And like fishing is one of the issues that I have when a fisherman is not making the money that they expected. There's other ways, if you're a businessman, then you got to figure it out. And one of the easy things that you can pivot to as a fisherman is doing private tours. And there's a bigger demand for them, like dolphin excursions and things like that. And there's a bigger demand.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, private charter tours.
Private charters that don't include. So when you first said that, I was like, what other kind of fishing?
Yeah, private. So basically, just pivoting to doing opening up
sunset
tours, things like that, opening it up, and you would be surprised how stubborn these captains were when I suggested that. Oh, I'm a fisherman. I'm not fishing captain. I don't do that. Stubborn? He's like, yeah, I know. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to do I'm a fisherman. That's what I'm going to do. That's my trips. And they felt like I was just putting a dagger in them. And I'm like, no, I mean, it's not like you have to do it every day, but you're opening up your audience 10x when you go after those private charters, because people want to get on the water and not everyone wants to go get beat up, in 3-4 foot seas on a 6-pack boat. So that's, just being stubborn and being inflexible. It was a definite mistake. And I've seen companies not even go a year because, when they did reach out for help, I gave them, solutions and they wouldn't take it. And hey, if all you did this is do fishing day in and day out and you don't want to pivot to something, that's fine. But in this business, like, you got to be prepared to make a living. And sometimes for fishermen too, their customer book is huge. That's the biggest thing for them. They want to take you out fishing and then for years to come, take your family and your kids and their grandkids. Like, generational fishermen exist. But in the first couple of years, you might find yourself doing things that you might not like, but it helps you build up your customer book and brings food on the table.
Yeah, well, it's you bring up fishing, and it's funny because I've been on plenty of charters. I know a ton of charter guys. I know charter fishermen up the wazoo, and it's funny because it's like for that same exact reason, like their customer base will call me like, okay, I want to go tuna fishing, and they're like, well, there's no tuna out there. You know what I mean? Like, we can rig you up, we can rig you up to go tuna fishing. Oh, we're not going to catch anything. Or like, I want to go grouper fishing. I want to catch a sailfish, like all this shit, So it's just like, I liken it to when I go get tattoos. If I go get a tattoo, I'll be like, well, what do you like to do, man? Like, what are you interested in? You tell me, like, you're the expert. You like to do tattoos. Like, I'm not going to go to a guy that does like fucking traditional and ask him for Japanese. So the same thing with fishermen. So it's like the fisherman, the charter fisherman has got to understand, or the customers got to understand that there's certain things you can go out fishing for. So in that regard, it's like there's already flexibility built into your model as a charter fishing guide. Like a customer comes up and wants to go catch sailfish. Well, they realize you're going to be sitting out there for 8 hours, not catch a damn thing. So you're going to have to talk to your customer and say, hey, like, snapper's biting right now, mahi's biting right now, whatever's on the bite is what's biting. So it's like at the same point in time, if somebody calls you up, or, you might put something out there that says, hey, we do, sunset cruises as well, because it's just like fishing. If nobody's fucking biting, motherfucker, then you better, you know what I mean? You better put some other kind of bait in the goddamn water, So it's like, we never talk to you fishing guys out there, but you guys are in our world too.
I also love when like some tour operators will buy like these weird ass like water attractions, like, I don't know. This is just one example. Someone bought a bunch of those water trikes with the big wheels, and they bought like 10 of them, and they thought they were going to like hit a home run with them. I lightly just nudged him to maybe get some jet skis and some other stuff, just because I knew like if that, I knew like the popularity of it wasn't there. Like he might get a couple of them rented, but he's not going to make the money he thought he was. And he was just hell bent on going full Monty on these water trikes. Like he wanted to do tours and like fitness classes. And I'm just like, okay, this guy, has a lot of ideas. I don't want to but I also know that just taking paddleboard tours, like paddleboard and kayak rentals, like it is of high volume, and you got to do a lot of it to make money. And he was just hell bent on doing it. And he did not last more than a year. And
it lasted more than a month, dude.
And just the stubbornness.
So many people get into those water trikes, and they're just like, I don't really like the fucking trash water. If your water trike's like your shit or whatever, but nobody's doing those things are the biggest fucking.
It's a big marketing thing. Like, yeah, you see them, they look fun, but in reality, a lot of people they just stick with the.
Looks awful. It looks like the worst shit ever, dude. Like, hey, you want to fucking ride a bike around in the open water? No, that sounds really terrible.
If I was starting a water sport company today and I wanted to do something new and different, like there was like a new water attraction or water sports that I wanted to get into, I would couple it with something that's already working. So I have something going on while I'm building up this newer, because you got to think like you have to brand it first. And like, that's why, I'm going to give a shout out to Ian and Haley Blaze from Cruise and Tiki's. When they first came here, there was nobody Googling tiki cruises. Like they had to build a brand, and they're in like, I think year 3, year 4. Now they're crushing it, but they had to put the work in to get it to where it's at. And I think
hey, here we go. Rule number 3, mistake number 3. Fucking don't reinvent the wheel. Don't go all in. I'll give it to the tiki thing. But I think that is definitely the exception, not the rule.
Absolutely.
And again, it's really, they weren't really reinventing the wheel. This is still, you're taking somebody out. It's a curated activity, but the activity still falls in line with what it is that we do, which is a tour of Crab Island or a sunset or look, man, you're taking somebody on a boat for some drinks, and those are really cool looking too. So, that's still very familiar. So when you start looking at things that have crashed and burned, like fucking flyboard or jet surf, and I wouldn't say crash and burn, like the items still exist, but they're for like, this is somebody you're buying like a jet surf board. Like jet surf businesses are not crushing it. Flyboarding is not crushing it. Like even when we got our flyboard, they recommended to us. So like, oh, you need, they were like, this is like, you're not going to do this on its own. But in the beginning, that was heavily marketed like that. Oh yeah, it's the next greatest, biggest fucking thing. You're going to crush it. Blah 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 blah.
And Ben's a perfect example of that. He started off flyboard, but he started using pontoon boats and jet skis to compensate for the ramp up of flyboard. Like that's how it's done. And he's actually made a really thriving business off of it because he diversified properly and he listened to people. And that's a big deal. And he's basically, one of the few people that if you ever ask me, like, has anyone known started something new and been successful? Yeah, but Ben also diversified the right way and was able to continue doing it. I don't think anyone's been doing it as successful for as long as he has.
He's not actually doing it anymore. Yeah, no, I can't remember what happened. Like flyboard's like really funky with insurance and shit, and it could be like a nightmare. But yeah, they stopped offering that product. But he'll be the first one to tell you that it was the most labor intensive and like not, regardless.
Well, he did. He still did it though for almost 10 years.
He's still but he's still flying. He still does shows. It's still like a part.
Just not as a rental.
A rental. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I was like, God damn it, man, you got me. I had like a thought, and now it's like it escaped me. Son of a bitch. I was watching the timer, and I felt like you were watching the timer.
Let's do one more, and we're gonna make this a 2-part because I have like 5 other things and I think this is a really important episode going into next year because I know I just recently had a couple people message me about starting their business. But the last thing is marketing, and I honestly think that we spend way too much money in year one on marketing, and we don't know why.
Let me stop you here, man.
Okay.
I think like where you left it at, where you just said, let's make this a 2-part, like we'll edit this middle part out. But I think what Greg just hit on, he said like, and again, he said, let's make this one a 2-part too. And I agree. We're going to have to do a 2-part to this series because it's like there's just there's too much. And so I think we're going to leave it there, and we want you guys to tune back in next week because we're going to talk about some more mistakes that people are making, not just in year one, but year 2, year 3. And we're going to leave it at a cliffhanger as to what that next part of that is. So tune back in next week to find out what one of the biggest mistakes you're making in year one, and probably you're going to be making in year 2022 if you're not on the cutting edge of the next thing we're going to bring up. So with that, guys, thanks for tuning in. As always, Greg and Kevin, we're out here keeping it fucking awkward.